if you're only going to talk about the positives of being Jewish, you're not going to talk about the pain of being Jewish, then you're not really talking about being Jewish. If anything, you're just sort of profiting off the punchline of being Jewish.
I know you have millions of followers. So, what inspired you to use your platform to counter misinformation about Israel and
Yeah.
anti-Semitism?
Yeah, it's funny. I get asked that question all the time, and I always reverse it because it's like, I don't think it's so crazy that I use my platform to speak up. I think it's insane that so many people with way bigger platforms said nothing. It was how I was raised. Um, but I just felt in my bones the second October 7th happened. I felt like, all right, this is why my ancestors fled the pogroms. And, they let me live the American dream. I mean, look at me for a living. I'm literally, like living my dream. And I started my career very young. And all those blessings were only given to me by the grace of God and the grace of my great grandparents who sacrificed all this. So, that I would speak up in a moment like this. And like, what was the point of I always say this, like, what's the point of being an influencer if you're not actually going to be influential when it matters? And so many of my idols let me down, and we're almost 2 years into this. They're not coming. Adam Sandler, Larry David, Seth Rogen, they don't have anything to say about anti-Semitism, which I think has been really disappointing for not just me, but millions and millions of Jews. I'll be okay. But I think it's more sad that there's a whole generation of kids that were young like me when I looked up to all those guys as these what seemed like proud Jews, but at the end of the day, I don't think they were so proud. I don't know. Or they just want to pick and choose what it means to be Jewish. But if you're only going to talk about the positives of being Jewish, you're not going to talk about the pain of being Jewish, then you're not really talking about being Jewish. If anything, you're just sort of profiting off the punchline of being Jewish.
And you've put yourself in some risky settings to make these videos, including going to the West Bank and putting yourself in the middle of anti-Israel protests. So tell me about going to the West Bank and when you were interviewing people and they said that they were generally pro-Hamas. Were you worried for your safety, one? And two, was it confronting
Yeah.
for you to hear that, or was it unsurprising?
No, it was shocking. Yeah, it was shocking. I really thought that there was going to be some people who said that, and a lot of people who wanted peace, or some people who wanted peace, or anyone who wanted peace. Um, and it could not have been more day and night. I mean, it was like no one wanted, like, peace is like a dirty word to the Palestinians. My whole perception changed that day. I left. I went into the West Bank believing in a two-state solution. I don't think I quite understood at that point like when it would happen, but I'm thinking like one day maybe this is a North Star. But I left that day thinking, oh my God, the two-state solution is totally dead, and I've been a fool for believing in it this whole year. What's the point of calling for a two-state solution when they don't want a state? And it became very clear that it wasn't about land, it wasn't about statehood, it was about eradicating Jews and killing Jews and wiping Jews off the face of the earth, and the Jews are devils, and the Jews have horns, and the Jews are evil, and they steal and they cheat. And I mean, just like I felt like I was in like Nazi Germany. And I almost died on that trip because even though I said I was Italian, obviously they didn't buy it forever. And Yeah, it was really disheartening, honestly. I wasn't scared of my safety. I should have been. I look back at the footage and I'm like, holy shit. Um, I think, we got a bunch of the deleted scenes back. I had a former Mossad agent pull a rabbit out of his hat, and got me a lot of the footage back, including the footage of when the Palestinian thugs started cornering us and having us shut down the cameras. I think it wasn't until I actually saw that footage, and you could really see the hate in their eyes and just like the bloodthirst for Jews in their eyes. I think it wasn't and until that moment, I realized quite how dangerous what I'd put myself in, and that was months later. So I was a bit naive at the time. It was the only video I've done since 10/7 where I didn't have security with me. I always have armed security with me when I do these types of videos. You'd be a fool not to. But that one I didn't because I couldn't, and there wasn't enough time to go undercover and plan it. And, I had like a Muslim film crew sneak me in, so I didn't have security, and I should have. But sometimes you feel compelled by God to do things, and I felt very much like I was supposed to go there and do that, and I'm glad I did.
That, yeah, it was really powerful. Thank you for going there and for doing that. But you also put yourself in the middle of anti-Israel protests as well in New York and on campuses, which can also be quite dangerous. Have you ever felt concerned for your safety in those settings?
Because I have security with me, I I do have a bit of an ease, like I am paying people, through my company that are like trained to look out for me and to look behind my back so that I don't have to and I can really just focus on the work I'm doing. So one, that gives me some solace. Two, I've always been a bit of a daredevil. I don't know. Like so I don't know. And yeah, it's probably a combination of those two, but there are days, especially like, I remember shooting this recent video where we did calling attention to all the domestic terrorist attacks that had happened in America back to back to back, including the one that had killed two Jews in DC. I remember being I was a bit on edge that day, just entering the park. It felt like, wow, Jesus. And you're talking to people who are literally saying on camera, like, yeah, Zionists should be shot on the street. And you're just like, wow, if someone shot me right now, they'd be happy. Like if someone shot a Zionist baby right now, like they'd be happy. There's a real bloodthirst, and it's largely coming from the progressive left, which is the craziest thing. It's like the people you're afraid of now are people with like dyed hair with septum rings, and it's loony. Like it shouldn't be that way, but that's kind of the new sort of face of evil, like a bit. Like, listen, Charlie Chaplin had a cute little Hitler stash too, but then Hitler ruins it. So it's like, at a certain point, dyeing your hair pink and getting a septum ring is harmless, but then it's sort of become the face of jihad in America, and it's quite puzzling, and it's quite scary. But honestly, the most evil people I've ever seen in my life have been these radical progressives. I've never quite looked evil in the eye until I've started interviewing a lot of these people. I don't even know if I believed in evil until I started interviewing people like this. But to know that these are people that a lot of them are educated, they're in college, they live among us, they are at the same bars as us, the same clubs, the same restaurants, and they totally have this bloodthirst in them. And again, I think you only start hating Jews if you hate yourself. We're like the OG scapegoat throughout history. And I think there's a lot of troubled young people who really hate themselves. And it's easier to hate the Jews. It's sitting there. Whenever you want to hate the Jews, there's 3,000 years of past precedent to grab onto. So they just lynch onto this thing.
And you've highlighted the anti-Semitism in New York, which is kind of surprising given how many Jews there are in New York City, and which has been also highlighted by how well Mamdani's done in being pre-selected. And I saw that you spoke to the New York mayor about that. Can you
Yeah.
provide some comments on what you think is happening in New York, and is this a microcosm of the general wokeness and
Yeah.
its combination with extremism?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think that, it's unsurprising it's happening in New York because it's the biggest Jewish population in, America, and it's the second biggest Jewish population in the world outside of Israel. So it's not shocking. Obviously, there's more Jews to hate, so there's going to be more hate. But then you look at Florida and they're not dealing with this, and there's tons and tons of Jews there too. So it's obviously a combination of that paired with the fact that our government's not doing enough. Now, I do believe in my heart, Mr. Adams, Mayor Adams, I do believe that he cares about the Jewish people and is trying to do all if he can, but he's been met with a lot of backlash in Albany and Kathy Hutchell, who's very, very liberal. And he's in a state now where he's left the Democratic Party, and this is in a state that is like almost mafia democratic. Like it is. I mean, I'm an independent, but the fact that when I go to vote every year in New York, there's not even Republicans on the ballot outside of the Senate. Like there's no Republicans who run for Congress. If they're there, they don't even campaign because they get 0%. Like there's really no infrastructure for any other voices. So, you know, on one hand, it's shocking to see Mandani, but on another hand, if you don't have, I mean, the Democrats in New York have actually gotten to a point, they've monopolized the city to a point where Republicans literally aren't on the ballot. I don't know another way to say that. Like that is as bad and as corrupt as it gets, and it's obviously coming from the Democrats. Um, and that's really scary because if I'm an independent. Like I don't really care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat, but we live in a two-party system, and so you have to have voices of reasonableness that are sort of going head to head at any time if you want to have any kind of common sense reform. And I just think there's been so little common sense reform in the city. And then you have Adams, who is perfectly centrist and trying to bring Muslims and Jews together and trying to protect Jews. And I just think he has his hands tied by a lot of really, really far left people working around him. So obviously, anti-Semitism has increased under his watch. I don't want to give him a scot-free card, and I know that a lot of Jews don't think he's done the most effective job, but I do believe very much so that he's a good man, and I think he is doing the best that he thinks he can. Could there be more? Probably. Uh, but again, he's the mayor only has so much power over so many things, and crime has objectively by the numbers gone down on his watch, and especially with some of his appointees. He just posted or appointed the highest Jew ever to lead the police force, and she's been phenomenal, and together they have really really lowered the crime rates. And so he's doing a decent job, and it's day and night when it comes to him versus Mandani. The thing about Mandani is he is the definition of a divider. And look no further, he is trying to turn Jews against other Jews. That's like a part of his platform, is to bring in the non-Zionist Jews and to make them feel like, no, 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 no. Like, obviously, I've said a lot of anti-Semitic things, and I totally think, like the Antifada should be globalized. But let me trick you guys with your progressive values, and I'll hold a trans flag, even though it makes no sense, because I'm also supporting governments that throw gay people off the roofs. But he's just like, he's tricking everybody, and he's like the definition of a con artist. So he's trying to divide the Jewish community, and he's trying to divide everybody along the lines of race. I mean, let's put Jews to the side for a second. This is a guy who has on his campaign website that he plans to tax whiter neighborhoods. I mean, this guy is a race baiter and a racist. I mean, and then now we have that he lied about his race on his college application to Columbia, which he didn't even get into, even though his dad works there. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a more racist campaign in my entire life. And the fact that he's tricking so many people by being racist, but then smiling, is like ludicrous. I mean, Fidel Castro was 29 and he was a smiling socialist when he took over. I mean, it's like we've been through this before. And I tweeted about this the other day. It's like an abusive boyfriend where, like, they do awful things, they say awful things, but they have this charm about them, and then people are lured back in, and they just don't see what they're going through. And then on the other hand, we have Adams, who I wouldn't even say is like just a champion for the Jews. He's like the definition of a uniter. Like, in my interview, he talked about that, bringing the Muslims and the Jewish communities together in more ways. He's already doing that, but we both spoke about ways we could do that even more. And so that's what I like about Adams. He is a good guy for this moment, and he's done a good job as mayor on a lot of issues. And again, the last thing we need is division. So these are the options we got. It's Adam versus Mandami. It's day versus night. And I really do believe it's good versus evil. I think Mandami is a lying, corrupt human being, and he's clearly a good politician. He hasn't been one for long, but he knows how to lie through his teeth. He's lying about what he plans to give New Yorkers. He's lying about all of his past policy positions. And it would be a terrible thing for New York. I really think the Jewish community needs to do all they can to prevent this from happening, because we see it with your government in Australia, right? Like, we see what happens when a government doesn't protect the Jews. Look what happens. Look what just happened to you guys this week. You're having synagogues burned in. You're having buildings broken into, Jewish restaurants with kids being screamed at by these pro-Palestine, pro-terrorist idiots. I mean, it's really scary stuff. And obviously that it can happen in New York tomorrow if Mandani's elected. It will happen. I have no doubt in my mind that Jews are going to be less safe in New York. No doubt in my mind. And so if you, and I wrote an op-ed about this in the Jerusalem Post. If you don't think he's an anti-Semite, you've lost the plot. I mean, you have to be an idiot to not see what he's saying and what he's doing, and how that's not anti-Semitic. Especially, he's built his entire career off villainizing Israel, demonizing Israel, talking about divesting from Israel. Has he talked about human rights from any other country in the world? No. So it's like your whole career is based on demonizing the only democracy in the Middle East that has equal rights for all of its religions, all of its citizens. I mean, this is a joke. If that's your entire agenda, your entire platform that got you into politics, you're an anti-Semite.
So talking about this collaboration between wokeness and extremism, you highlight at these protests how often people don't even know what they're talking about, which river, which sea, and there's a lot of ignorance. So why do you think wokeness and extremism, like justifying the deaths of people, particularly Zionists, has become fashionable amongst young people? And what is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah, I mean, young people are, easily susceptible. So obviously the elephant in the room is social media. I'm writing a book about this right now, and like my theory is essentially like anti-Semitism is not new at all. What's new is social media. So what's new is that social media has made the most viral anti-Semitic campaign in history. I mean, there was think about Goebbels would have had a wet dream over this. Like, he used the radio to the best of his ability, which was the new technology at the time to brainwash Nazi Germany. But social media, I mean, it would have seemed almost godlike to the capabilities of the Nazis that they could get propaganda to poison people against Jews in the hands of young people and everyone all around the world all at once, from Gaza to Greenwich Village, New York. I mean, it's so that's really the key factor. When things trend and they become big, people want to be a part of it, and unfortunately social media has made it possible, and companies like TikTok have enabled all of this. They're the worst. There's bad stuff on all these apps, but TikTok is the at the forefront of suppressing Jewish voices, and elevating pro-terror voices. So, I mean, I got banned from TikTok a few weeks ago over a video that where I was, and I could not have been. You can see it on my Instagram. I'm like, I'm talking in like the most calm voice. I'm just like educating this girl who is in a keffiyeh and a pride flag, and I'm explaining to her that Israel is the only country in the Middle East that allows gays to live freely, and that in Gaza they throw gays off roofs, which is a fact. You can Google all this, but and instead of listening to me or having a respectful conversation, she started twerking on me and in the with the keffiyeh, and I got dinged for bullying and harassment for telling someone that Israel doesn't kill gay people, but in Gaza they kill gay people, and that she might want to look stuff up. That I was banned off TikTok.
Did you
I got
appeal that? Or I've
I
heard
appealed
people
it. I appealed, and of course nothing happened. Eventually, I posted, and I had every Jew in the world going to everyone they knew at TikTok, and through the powers of the Jewish, community, I was brought back to life. But there's still so many issues at TikTok, and that's just one small example of a million I could give you. I've had videos taken down where I've interviewed hostages and tried to get their story out. They're taken down. They have no mechanism to stop anti-Semitism, nor do they care. So I think that's how anti-Semitism really has become fashionable, because you know it's right in front of our eyes. Go on TikTok. It's
isn't
insane.
it scary?
They allow the most pro Hamas things ever, and you're literally, and they go look at the comment sections on my videos or other Jewish creators. It's like, hail Hitler, Hitler was right, Hitler was awesome, killed the Jews. None of those get taken down. They're allowed to just live up there and flourish. And then I'll make a video being like, hey, did you know that gays in Israel are actually like not being killed compared to like Gaza, and that like one's a democracy and one's like a dictatorship, like a jihadist dictatorship, and like I got my video taken down, but all the comments on my videos being like, "Dude, Hitler was the man, dude, kill the Jews." Like those are fine with their like. That's how TikTok become, or that's how anti-Semitism becomes fashionable. It's algorithmic.
it's scary, is what it is. And to think about what happens in the future, a lot of people just getting their news now from social media. People don't even read the news anymore or watch
Yeah,
TV, just looking at social media all the
yeah,
time. So, what's the
yeah.
future?
I listen, all I can't control the outside of, what's going on. All I can do, it's a similar feeling to what I've done in the last year and a half. I've raised a lot of money to fight the propaganda. If there's 2 billion Muslims, if a fourth of them are reposting things about free Palestine, that's half a billion people engaged on social media reposting complete propaganda. That's going to go viral. It doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be factual, it just has to be reshared by a small fraction of the large portion of Jew haters out there. And we're fucked algorithmically. And so the only thing I've seen that works to push against that is just amazing content. Things can either get reshared because if you repost something about the Super Bowl while the Super Bowl is active, then obviously it's going to go more viral because there's a lot of people reposting about that. So that's what the pro Palestine side has, and they've turned this whole scenario into David and Goliath, where they're the David and Israel's the Goliath. But that's all bullshit. The whole thing is that there's 57 Arab and Muslim countries that control 1,400 times the land mass, like of the Middle East than Israel, which is the size of like this could not be more David and Goliath. It's like a fucking joke that we're even here, but they've reversed the psychology and created this concept of a Palestinian identity in the 60s, so that you could eliminate Israel by inverting the David and Goliath. And so that's where things stand on reality right now. And so we have to push that narrative, the correct narrative, which is that Jews are 0.2% of the global population and Muslims are 25% of the global population. We have to get those facts out in a viral form. And so we can't stop the other side, but what we can do is make really good content that is so well produced that it breaks through the algorithms. Unfortunately, and not every, and I'm lucky, I had a production company that I built over about 15 years before October 7th. So we had the infrastructure to be able to kind of hit the ground running. And so I'm constantly fundraising and getting new donors and new mentions and people to come and fund the social media side of things, because we have to get education out. If they're not going to do it in school and they're not going to do it right online, then we have to get our facts out, and it has to be so bold and entertaining and smart. And so that's all I know how to do. And I'm producing 10 videos a month. I know if I was producing 50 videos a month, there'd be 5 times as much education out there. So if you're watching this and you're interested in helping fund some of the efforts we do, please contact me. Would love to bring you to one of our nonprofit partnerships, because that really is the only way I can see Jews winning. And where I'm hopeful is that whenever there's been a disadvantage, like it's always David and Goliath is the story of the Jews for a reason, because we've always been much smaller than our enemies. Fortunately, though, we've been able to overcome that. And if you just look at militarily where we are, Israel is probably, I think it's fair to say, Israel is probably the most dominant military power in the Middle East now, right? It is the size of New Jersey. So if we can be that smart and small on the battlefield, we can still be that smart and small on the digital battlefield, on the social media warfare side of things. And so that's my new passion in life. Especially as film and television as an industry are sort of shrinking. I don't know if those things are even going to be around the way we know them in 10 years, but I know social media is just going to continue to get bigger and bigger. And so I think part of my mission is going, well, people still want to watch high production things. They still want to watch big ideas. They still want to be entertained in a big way. So if you can find a middle ground and bring high quality production and bold ideas to short form content, that has been really educational. All my videos that I've produced, I've been in a handful of them, but all my videos I produced since 10/7 have gotten close to, I think, 10 billion views and impressions now. That's a lot. So like I said, and that's doing like less than 10 videos a month. So imagine the scale my company can be doing if we're doing 50, 100 videos a month. That's just more and more information out there that's getting the facts out in smart, creative ways. So I don't know how to solve the world's problems, but I know how to do my part. And I think more people should want to join that fight. And unfortunately, as much as I wish it was as simple as being like, hey, I'm a Jew, I care, I'll hold up an iPhone and talk. It's just like, and it's unfortunate because like we all have access to iPhones now, and you may go and say all the right things, but like everybody can hold up an iPhone now. So like when you see things of a phone on your feed, you kind of scroll past it now. Like there's just everybody's doing that. And so that's why it's really important to actually invest in production, in high quality content, in big ideas, social experiments. Like I'm not sure if you saw this new video I just produced. It got a million plus views overnight. Like literally, it got a less than, or it got about 1.5 million views between all the platforms overnight. So like in less than 24 hours. And it was just a great idea. We put like 20 strangers together in a room and showed them footage from Hamas and what they do to indoctrinate their children in Gaza and the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority as well. But you know, that's like a big idea that costs a lot of money. You know, you have to get a space together. You have to get like 10 cameras to get reactions, you know, and then you have to hire people and get straight and do casting. You know what I mean? You're casting stranger, like, you know, so like that, but that worked. We knew it was going to get 1 million views because it's a good idea, you know.
Mm.
So it's like we need to be more investing in the production social media side of things. And there's a lot of donors interested. I have to wave my finger or wag my finger at a lot of the Jewish nonprofits. A lot of them are so behind the ball on social media. Like, you know, and it doesn't mean they're not investing in a lot of great things, but like they're still investing in like newspaper ads and they have like tons of money there, you know, like, you know, Robert Kraft is amazing, and that group does a lot of amazing stuff. But like, you know, I think it cost them $8 million to put a commercial for the Super Bowl up. Imagine how much money you could have. I mean, imagine how many videos you could have made if you spread that 8 million out through social media. Do you much like you know how much more effective that would be? So it's like, and it's not their fault. Like you know, Super Bowl ads did that was the thing for a very long time. You know, social media it hasn't been around for a long time. So it's just really important for Jewish organizations and Jewish titans of business and Jews who want to be active to really join the social media battlefield because Israel's going to win the war. I have no doubt in my mind about that. Israel's not going anywhere. So what's lingering though is anti-Semitism, and the scary thing is it seems that the stronger Israel is, it seems the worse anti-Semitism gets around the world. Um, I've really noticed that over the last year and a half. Like, I think there's a lot of people who actually thought they don't know anything. And so they actually thought Israel was a bunch of white Polish colonizers and they were all just going to like leave when Gaza like unleashed it. So I don't know what that, but I really think they thought Israel was going to not exist by now and it's not going anywhere. It's stronger than it is so much stronger than it was 2 years ago. Like it's the opposite of what they wanted. And I think you're going to see a lot of backlash. And I think we are seeing a lot of backlash. I think a lot of this stuff we're seeing with the domestic terror getting bigger, not only in America, but in Australia, I think it's an anger that they realize that, you know, Hamas lost.
Something that really struck me with your videos, and you mentioned it just now, was the quality of the production. And I know that you got into filmmaking at a really young age. And I know we're going a bit off topic, but can you tell me a bit about how that happened to you at such a young age?
Yeah. You know, I was so lucky. Like I think like one of the luckiest things that can happen to anyone in life is knowing what they want to do at a very young age. And I like knew I wanted to make movies and shows from the time I was like 8. Like, and, you know, my mom was like, you know, in comedy, like sort of like she like made these like SAT comedy vocabulary products back in like the early 2000s. And she was always bringing me into the recording studio and having me do funny stuff on her, you know, professional product. Um, and so you know, I was like exposed to comedy at a really young age, and I was so obsessed with all of these Jews in Hollywood who were making like the best stuff out there, like Borat, Super Bad, you know, 40-Year-Old Virgin, knocked out, like, you know, Judd Apatow, Larry David, Sacha Baron Cohen, all these guys. Jon Stewart. I was just like, I could not get over. I was so inspired by the fact that we're such a small group, but look at this desert we made blossom in the West Coast. You know, it's not just Israel. And so I knew very early I wanted to be a part of that. And luckily YouTube came out right around then. I mean, I think I started doing stand up when I was 13 and then started doing YouTube like a year later just because it had just come out. Um, And so I was active on YouTube starting in like 2008. I started posting street stuff where I was running around my high school with a microphone and stuff I was doing for the district network and the morning announcement show and posting those to YouTube. And I it built my confidence, and I just kept getting better and better, and my views kept getting more and more. And then by the time I was 17, I got this big development deal with Disney Channel from Philly, which like at the time is like unheard of. Like the thought of like and this was when TV was huge. Like I would now I don't even now if you were like got pulled from YouTube to Disney, you'd be like, I got demoted. But like back then that was like huge. And YouTube wasn't as big back then. So yeah, I got a really early break. I got to executive produce and create my own prank show that I hosted. I got to create a sitcom pilot that didn't get picked up, but again, I created a pilot, so I knew what to do. Once I left Disney, I wrote a feature film script and got it made while I was still an undergrad at UPenn. Sold it to Hulu. I wrote it, directed it, starred in it. I made another movie for Amazon. Made another show pilot for HBO Max. From there we always had a foot in the internet, and just we're doing viral videos for brands, nonprofits. I was building my own social media channels, and I've just been really, really hustling, and I knew what I wanted to do. So I kept going at it. But the Jewish part of the story is the letdown. I mean, I went into this industry because I was like so honored to be a part of this world that was so like it was just so built by Jews. I mean, 6 of the 8 first Hollywood studios were built by Jews. I mean, that's just like insane. Like the math doesn't make any sense. And it's not because of a conspiracy theory we can control the world. So we worked our tuchuses off, and we put our big, beautiful Jewish brains to work. And I was really excited to be a part of that. And it's funny. I get asked all the time, like, well, how do you feel now about Hollywood? First of all, I haven't lost any opportunities. We're still a player in the game. And two, Hollywood's like shrinking. So it's like I'd rather be a part of the new media wave where I get to do media that really matters to me. And the fact that I get to run my own company, I get to be the star in the videos I'd like to, and then produce for all my friends who are these amazing pro-Western, pro-Israel, pro-Jewish, Christian Zion. We're talking, I mean, because we make stuff too that's not just about Jews. If you follow my show Street Smart, we tackle tons of topics, but we're trying to come from a middle ground angle. So the fact that I get to produce all this stuff and be a Jewish thought leader, and that I don't have to worry about like, wow, is what I say going to get me like kicked off of my, ABC show? Like those days are over, man. There's all these Jews in Hollywood that are terrified. You should be terrified of not speaking up. You're all going to lose your jobs anyway. Like, Hollywood's shrinking. So you might as well say what you believe and build a following around the truth and around people who want to see your truth in the content that you're making. And so I actually think it's a really exciting time for the Jewish media, because all these Jewish idols let us down. They're still amazingly talented, a lot of them. It doesn't mean we shouldn't watch their work. It doesn't mean we shouldn't support them in other ways, but they obviously don't want to be a voice for the Jewish people. They've all made that very clear, almost all of them, except for a handful that I'm sure you and me could literally count on one hand. But besides those people, they don't want to be a voice for the Jews. They don't want to stick up for their people. So I don't get that. That's not how I roll. But the great thing is I can roll how I want, and they can roll how they want, and it's a big media landscape.
Well, thank you for doing what you do and for making these
Yeah.
videos, which I really think cut through so much of the noise and clarify things and give us hope. So, and I look forward to meeting you in Australia for the
Yeah,
gala. And
I
thank
know.
you so much for your
Stay
time.
strong out there. I'm so pissed at what I saw this week with Melbourne. I'm pissed isn't even the right word. It's sad, but we have to stay strong, and we have to be calling on governments to do better. I mean, the fact that your government allowed something like this to happen is just, I mean, I'm not surprised because I've been seeing a lot about Melbourne, but it's very sad.
Well, I feel for New York too. It's a hard time for a lot of Jewish people around the world.
It
Anyway,
is.
but thank you, Zach, and I look forward to meeting with you. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Awesome. Peace.